Have you ever stared at a budget report, looked at the actual numbers, and just thought, what in the world happened here? Well, if you have, you're in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to put on our detective hats and solve a classic business mystery, the case of the disappearing budget, or, as it's officially known, overhead variance.
Right? It's the question that drives managers crazy. You craft this beautiful, perfect plan, a really solid budget, but reality, it always seems to have its own agenda. That gap, the space between your plan and what really went down, that's what we call a variance. And trust me, understanding that gap is the secret to running a much smarter, more efficient operation. So let's open up the case file.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll establish the basic facts, what we're even talking about. Then we're going to meet our four main suspects, the variances themselves. We'll interrogate them one by one, and finally, we'll bring all the clues together to officially crack this case.
Every good investigation starts with a case file, and for us, that's the simple but super powerful concept of a variance. At its core, it's nothing more than the difference between what you budgeted and what actually happened. But, inside that simple number, there's a whole story waiting to be told.
The very first clues we're going to look for are whether a variance is favorable or unfavorable. Think of it this way. Favorable is good news. It means we spent less than we planned, which, hey, helps the bottom line. Unfavorable is the bad news. We spent more than we thought we would, and that hurts our income. These are the first signals that tell us exactly where we need to start digging.
Now, the total difference in our overhead budget, it's not just one big random number. Nope, it's actually the result of four very distinct things that could have gone wrong. These are our four main suspects, and our job is to figure out which one or which ones are really responsible for blowing up our budget.
And here they are, our lineup of suspects. You see, the total overhead variance is split into two main gangs. You got variable overhead and you got fixed overhead. Each of those has two key players. In the variable camp, we're dealing with spending and efficiency. And over in the fixed camp, we have spending and production volume. All right, time to bring them into the interrogation room. First up, we are hauling in the variable overhead variances. Now, these are the costs that change based on how much stuff we make, things like indirect materials or certain utilities. So what story are they going to tell us? Suspect number one is the spending variance. This one is all about price. It's that simple. Did we pay more or did we pay less for our variable overhead items than we budgeted for? You know, if our electricity rate suddenly spiked, or if the price of machine lubricant went through the roof, this is the variance that's going to scream at us. It's all about the rate we paid. And look at that. The formula pretty much confesses. It zeroes in on one thing and one thing only, the difference between the actual rate we paid per hour or per unit and the budgeted rate we were supposed to pay. It's a pure price investigation. It tells us if we overpaid or underpaid for the resources we used.
Okay, on to suspect number two, the efficiency variance. Now, this guy isn't about the price we paid for things. This is all about the quantity of things we used. Did it take us more machine hours than it was supposed to? Did our team need more time to get the job done than our standard allows? If our machines were acting up or our team was working inefficiently, this variance is going to be unfavorable for sure.
And once again, the formula gives up the whole story. See? It's not looking at the price at all. It's comparing the actual hours we used to get the job done against the standard hours we should have used for that level of production. It's a pure, unadulterated measure of our operational efficiency.
I love this visual. It shows you perfectly how our two suspects are connected. Over on the far left, that's what we actually spent. On the far right, that's what it should have cost based on our standards. The spending variance explains the piece of that difference caused by paying the wrong price. The efficiency variance explains the rest, the piece caused by using too much or too little time. Together, they tell the whole story.
Now let's look at the actual evidence from a real case file, a company called Chowdown Inc. And wow, both of their variable variances were unfavorable. They had a massive $42,900 unfavorable spending variance. That means they paid way more per machine hour than they planned, and on top of that, they had a $13,200 unfavorable efficiency variance, which means they also used more machine hours than they should have used. That is a serious double whammy. Okay, so let's pause here because this is a really important distinction. For variable costs, the big question is all about efficiency. But when we turn our attention to fixed costs, the story completely changes.
Efficiency isn't the main suspect anymore. Instead, we're investigating something totally different: production volume. Getting this difference is absolutely crucial.
All right, let's bring in our next two suspects, the fixed overhead variances. Now, these are costs like rent or manager salaries, the stuff that doesn't change no matter how much we produce. And they tell a very, very different story than their variable cousins.
So, the fixed overhead spending variance. This is the easiest suspect to interrogate, hands down. It's just a straight-up comparison. What did we budget for our fixed costs, and what did we actually spend? Did we budget $450,000 and only spend $429,000? Awesome, that's a favorable variance. It really is that simple.
Now this is the really interesting one, the production volume variance. Let me be clear, this has nothing to do with how much money we spent. This is all about how well we used our factory, our capacity. If we had a plan to produce 18,000 units, but we only made 16,500, well, we didn't use our facility to its full budgeted potential. This variance captures the cost of that idle or unused capacity.
And this visual just makes it crystal clear that spending variance is just the simple gap between our actual spending and what was in the budget. Easy enough. But the production volume variance, that's the gap between our budget and how much overhead we actually applied to the products we made. It's a measure of volume, not spending. Two totally different stories.
And look at the results from Chowdown Inc. again. This is fascinating, right? Their spending variance was $21,000 favorable. They spent less on fixed costs than they budgeted. That's a win. But their production volume variance was $37,500 unfavorable. Why? Because they produced less than they planned, so they underutilized their capacity.
And here it is, the big plot twist in our mystery, an unfavorable volume variance. Well, it might not be the production manager's fault at all. Think about it. If the sales team doesn't bring in enough orders or a huge client cancels a project, what happens? Production levels have to fall. So this clue often points us outside the factory walls. It tells us to go talk to sales, marketing, or to look at the overall market conditions.
So there we have it. We've interrogated all four suspects. We've got the data, we've got the clues. Now it's time to put it all together. Solve this mystery once and for all and turn our findings into some real, actionable insights for management.
For an operations manager, someone who lives and breathes this stuff every day, a four-way analysis is perfect. It lays out all four variances separately, nice and clean. They can see exactly where the problems are. Are we paying too much for our supplies? Are we inefficient on the production line? Did we overspend our fixed budget, or did we just not make enough stuff? It gives them a precise diagnosis so they can go fix the right thing.
But, for a C-level executive, that might be way too much detail. They might want a two-way analysis instead. This view bundles all the controllable spending and efficiency issues into one number, the flexible budget variance, and it keeps that volume variance separate. It just answers two simple questions. 1, how well did we control our costs for the work we actually did? And 2, did we do the amount of work we planned to do?
So, the case is cracked. We know if our budget mystery was caused by a price problem, an efficiency problem, a spending problem, or a volume problem. But here's the thing. The investigation, that's just the beginning. The real question is, what are you going to do about it? If it's a price problem, do you go renegotiate with suppliers? If it's an efficiency issue, is it time to retrain staff or service the machines? If it's a volume problem, do you need to sit down with the sales team and look at their forecast? Now that you can diagnose the problem, you have the power to write a much, much better story next month.